What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie298 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And I'm back in my home arcade. And you guys have watched as I've slowly gotten all of these review versions of these Arcade 1-Up machines. And you've always said the same thing. Why don't you get a nice emulator system? And the reason was because, for the most part, they were always far too expensive. Most of the ones I would look like seem to start at like $1,000. They could go as much as $2,000 or $3,000 to have all the different features that I would want. Until the folks over at AtGames sent me this, their brand new Legends Ultimate Arcade Cabinet. This is a review copy. I spent the last 5 days playing around with this, and I'm very, very impressed. Let me show you why. So starting off with the hardware, we'll talk about software in a second. But I have to say, this has pretty much most of, if not everything, you would want it to have. Obviously, it's got two dual stereo speakers. It's got a light-up marquee. It's got an incredible screen, much larger than the ones that you will find in Arcade 1-Up. You've got 6 different buttons. You've got a really good spinner, a fairly decent trackball. I mean, certainly better than the ones that were on Arcade 1-Up. The joystick is really decent as well. But this little feature is what makes it really magical. These two HDMI and USB slots, and this little switch which allows you to swap from these ports. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Now this comes preloaded with 350 games, and if I'm being honest with you, the games that they come preloaded with are not great. And this is something I've heard when a lot of people talk about AtGames. Not only will they do arcade ports, but then they will do console versions of the game as well. For example, right here, you're going to see Burger Time for the Atari 2600, Burger Time the arcade version, which is obviously the superior version, and then Burger Time for the ColecoVision. When you see stuff like this, really, I don't understand the point of it. It seems like a way to just pad the number of games you're getting. And when you take a look at this list of games, I will probably link to their website where you can see the 350 games that comes with this system. You're going to notice that there's not a lot of big licenses here. There's some fun stuff like Fix It Felix and, of course, Burger Time and some games you never heard of that I think you might really enjoy. I played Boogie Wings for the first time, obviously with my name on it. I loved it. Karate Champ. But where's all the stuff that Arcade 1-Up is publishing? Where's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Where's Galaga? Where's Rampage? Where's Pac-Man? Where's Gauntlet? All of the games that you and I wanted to play over and over again in the arcades. They're not here on this system. There are some really good games, specifically because it has the Disney license. There's a lot of NES Disney games on here that are really a lot of fun to play. So that is an advantage, but buying the system just for the 350 games that comes on it, not a smart investment. The good news is there's a lot more that this thing can do. Speaking of Disney, by the way, I wanted to take a brief moment to show you the side art. I mean, it's nothing fantastic. It's got a lot of Disney stuff on it. You know, obviously Fix It Felix and some Tetris, but then Aladdin, Jungle King, a little bit of Star Wars on it. This does not have the vector graphics Star Wars ship games, though. A little disappointed by that. Because when I say Star Wars, that's what I always think of. That definitely doesn't have those games, so be pre-warned. Going back to the menu here, we will go up here and I will show you Arcade Net. Now, this is an interesting feature, but it's one I don't think a lot of people will take advantage of. For $19 a month, you can cloud stream and yes, even download some of these games. So Ikari Warriors, Ikari Warriors 3, King of Monsters, Metal Slug X, Samurai Showdown, some really great games that if these were included on the actual system without a fee, I would probably recommend them. But since you have to pay $19 a month to get access to these games, and what? There's 1, 2, 3 pages worth of games. There's really not $19 worth of games here. If I could pay $19 to download all of these games to my system, I'm not particularly sure that would be something I would be interested in doing. So I feel like this is overpriced, certainly for what you get. They say they'll be adding new games all the time. So again, as any service, this could get better. It could get worse over time. The price could drop. The selection could increase. As it is right now, I do not recommend subscribing to ArcadeNet if you buy this machine. Here is a feature that I probably will never take advantage of, but I think a lot of you at home might. But again, the pricing is very bizarre. This is the bring your own game system, where if you own a game on Steam, on Origin, Blizzard, Epic, GOG, or the Ubisoft launchers, you can, by plugging in a mouse and keyboard, log into those systems and then stream your games directly to this cabinet. Now, there's two ways to do that. Number one, you can spend $1 an hour and use their cloud computing to run your games on their hardware. Yep. That's absurdly expensive. $1 an hour to play a game you already own. Nobody's going to do that. The good news is there is software now that I think everyone has access to that you can actually stream directly from your PC. So if you want to use these awesome controllers to play your Street Fighter 4 or your Street Fighter 5 that you have on your Steam account, you absolutely can. It takes a few steps. You got to find a mouse and keyboard that you can plug into here. But before you know it, you can do that, and you can do it for free because you're not streaming from their hardware. You can stream it from your own. So it's a great way to play modern games here on a stand-up arcade cabinet. Again, if I can play it on my big television, if I can play it on my couch, that's probably where I'm going to play it, but some people might really like that option. Now, here is the settings screen, and not only is there plenty of settings here, I want to show you that this is also a internet-connected device. Obviously, if you're going to be streaming your own games, obviously, if you're going to be streaming games from their services, it's got to be connected to the internet. And that means there are firmware updates. With these firmware updates, many features could change, features could disappear, more features could be added. And I know from having seen several other reviewers talk about this cabinet, several friends who own this cabinet, and even talking to the folks at AtGames themselves, there is limitless potential. There is the potential that they will allow you to pair this via Bluetooth to a Raspberry Pi. There's so many different things that they're working on, things that they're capable of doing, that really I hope that they end up doing. They seem very interested in moving this hardware, very interested in getting people to buy the machine itself by offering tons and tons of features. They're listening to the community to hear what they have to say, to offer those features. I'm really impressed by that. I know AtGames has a bit of a reputation in the industry, but as it is right now, this seems to be a very solid turning point for them because they are really listening to their customers. Now, here's where things get interesting. If you're not satisfied with 350 games that are on here, there is a way for you to purchase games via these little blast devices that AtGames makes. They sent me one of these. This is the star-based one, and it's just a matter of plugging it into the HDMI slot, plugging it into the USB slot for power, and then you can play the 12 games that comes on the stick. And in fact, if you buy the Sam's Club version of this machine instead of the Walmart version, you'll actually get a free blast with Namco games on it. That's not the one they sent me. They sent me the Walmart version. But I did get this to test it. Let me show you how it works. By simply plugging that into the HDMI slot and then plugging in the USB port for power, I can then swap the different modes, swap to the different input here, and lo and behold, here we have this blast exactly the same as it would be if you plugged it into a television or anywhere else. But it will use these controllers. Now, this Star Flashback Blast is very poor. It has a few Star Wars games, but for the most part, these are Atari 2600 ports. These are bad, bad ports. I would not recommend you purchase one of these because even at $5, $10, I feel like you would not get your money's worth because these are generally console ports of arcade games and not the arcade classics themselves. It's nice that the option exists, but I don't think a lot of people will take advantage of the option to play, you know, Jungle Hunt on the Atari 2600. Everyone would rather have the arcade game. Is there a way to get an arcade game version of Jungle Hunt on here? Absolutely. Stepping over here to my laptop real quick, and let me show you this little program called the add-on tool, which is developed by the company itself AtGames. This is not being, I think, distributed on the website yet, but it has been distributed, so you can definitely find it. And all you basically need is a MAME 2003 emulator core and then a game zip, and then it will output a package that allows you to then put it on any thumb drive. I have this thumb drive, and then you can play those games right there on your system. If you have the ROM, if you have legal access to the ROM, I should say, because I would never encourage piracy, you can then play it on your system. No streaming, no fuss, all you need is a thumb drive. Let me show you. Once you plug in the thumb drive, you will have this option known as add-ons, and here we have the add-on games that I've installed. Now, if you don't have box art, if you don't have that stuff, you can use it. You don't have to use it. But let's say we want to play the Simpsons Arcade, which I had downloaded and built the package for. A few minutes later, here we are. We're booting up the Simpsons Arcade. So if there's a specific ROM you want to have on the system and it will fit on a thumb drive, all you need is that add-on tool, all you need is that thumb drive, and you're playing that game. Now, I don't know that every ROM in the world will work with this. There's not a lot of ROMs I've tested just yet because, like I said, I've only had it over the weekend, but I have found plenty of ROMs that do. My version, I tried several different versions of Zookeeper and couldn't get it to work. So keep in mind, if there's a very specific game you want to play, I cannot guarantee that it will play it. But there are constant firmware updates, and they have said they're looking at that kind of thing, not just the features, but any bugs and any issues they have that can help those emulators run these systems. They'll be adding more systems so you can have more console versions and arcade games and everything else. I'm really pleased with the state of this console, and I'm really pleased with the state of the way the company's running the system. I mean, they seem to really be getting it right this time. I'm really impressed. I think one of the things that impresses me the most is the price point. If I remember correctly, this was $499 at my local Sam's Club, which makes it very affordable for what you get. Then there is the $5.99 version, I think, exclusive to Walmart, which has actually less stuff to it. I'm not sure that they're exclusive. They may be able to sell them anywhere. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I'm saying that if an arcade one-up version of a game is $400, $300, even $500 for something like the Turtles one or Star Wars, and you can get this instead, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, you could buy all of these, or you could just put all of those games right there. Seems like an easy choice. Now is where I nitpick a little bit, and I have to say, as much as I love the buttons, the controllers, I do wish there was a second joystick. On my dream setup, I would like 2 joysticks per player. That's, you know, not great. Again, you're only limited to 2 sticks here, so if you wanted to play 4-player Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you'd have to get the arcade one-up one, or you'd have to find a way to add controllers to the system and make sure that they are working with the 4-player game you want to play. That's another downside. And like I said, the base games that are on the system are just not great. I mean, look at that game selection. It's kind of depressing. And their desire to put console versions of games on the system seems kind of silly, especially when it comes to Atari 2600 games. Those are barely games. They more look like computer vomit these days. So, yeah, I don't know. There's some things that they do that is a little sketchy, and that's a reason to be careful. Highly recommend being careful. But this seems like one of those moments where they absolutely got it right for a change. And I'm pleased to support that. I'm very grateful to have this system in my home. I can throw away all these if I want to. I don't want to. And now you might be asking yourself, do I hate Arcade 1-Up? Absolutely not. There's a lot of things that they do that at home can't currently do. Like I said, 4 players on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 3 players on Gauntlet, very specific games like the Star Wars Yolk. That's definitely not something you can play. You cannot play those original Star Wars games on the Legends Ultimate. You can play console ports, certainly, but not the official game. So there are plenty of instances where Arcade 1-Up is the better option. If you only want to play Galaga, then it's okay to get this system and only play Galaga. And yes, it is entirely possible to pick the Arcade 1-Up machine of your choice that has the controls you want, and then just mod that via hardware to have access to a Raspberry Pi. But for maybe a couple $100 more, you can get this system, which admittedly doesn't look as good, but does have the stereo speakers, does have all of the controls, does have the input, does have internet connectivity. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to pick this one, I think. So, probably the crowning jewel of my collection. I don't think I'll ever get a better system than this. Now, as usual, let me remind you, this is just one man's opinion. I could be wrong. I am no expert. There are plenty of YouTubers. I would recommend John Riggs, who've taken this system and bought it and played with it and done things with it I can't even imagine yet, because I'm not an expert. I'm entry level on this kind of stuff. So you should check out those people as well and see what they have to say. Look at all of your different options before you decide to buy. But I have to say, for my personal needs, for my personal desires, I really, really like this arcade cabinet. I'm very pleased with it. It fits my needs, but it might not fit yours. So keep doing your research. Don't just listen to me. I'm an idiot. Guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel while you're down there. Drop a like on this video so I know that you enjoyed it. Leave a comment and let me know what I got right, what I got wrong, whether or not you like this arcade machine, whether or not you trust the folks over at AtGames. Let me know if you do, and if you don't, why. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon. I'm gonna figure out a way to get Zookeeper working. So that's one of my favorite old school games, man. That is a damn good game. I'm gonna go catch lions.